Good evening, everybody. Tonight we will go deep into the realm of the unknown and question everything as we search for the truth. We will explore the possibility of countless phenomena within the ultra spectrum, and together we will learn that it is all connected. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association, and it is a live stream broadcast. If you have a question, send me a super chat or become a YouTube member. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. Take a seat, relax, get ready, and welcome to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. Today is Thursday, July 14th, 2022, and I, Ryan Stacey, am your host this evening. I'm a licensed private investigator, citizen journalist, and the Director of Investigations for the Experiencers Support Association. I'm the former National Chief Investigator for MUFON Canada and the former International Field Investigator Trainer for MUFON General. Welcome to the channel, and thank you for joining us this evening. Remember to super chat, click the $sign next to your name in the comment box below. And if you're on Rockfin, please send a tip. That would be greatly appreciated. Tonight's theme is implant and abduction phenomenon. Our guest for season 4, episode 24 is Derrel Sims, also known as Alien Hunter. Derrel Sims, the Alien Hunter, is the world's leading expert on alien abductions. His 38-plus years of field research has focused on physical evidence and led to his groundbreaking discoveries of alien implants and alien fluorescence. As a former military police officer and CIA operative, Sims has a unique insight to the alien organization, which he believes functions similarly to an intelligence agency. That's very interesting. Sims is also a compassionate and skilled therapist who has helped hundreds of alien experiencers all over the world come to terms with what they've witnessed. Derrel is responsible for the discovery of the alien implant phenomenon and pioneered research protocols. He orchestrated first public surgeries and testing of alleged implants from the human body in 1995, and has performed over 24 surgical procedures so far to help abductees. Derrel Sims has made several appearances on cable television in many countries as part of his body of work in the abduction phenomenon. Derrel, please put on your tinfoil hat. We're about to go down a rabbit hole. How are you doing this evening?
Thank you so much, Ryan.
You're welcome. Well, quite the impressive background there. As I mentioned before, I usually do this live and off the cuff, and not too often am I impressed by the background there that I almost want to ask you a question instantly. Before we get into that, what I'm going to do is start out with an icebreaker from CC. I see that super chat from you, Gary. I will get to that in just a minute. 1 second. All right, so this icebreaker question is from CC. It is an extraterrestrial race reaches out to global humanity with a message of peace and goodwill. Do you believe them? If so, why or why not?
Well, I categorize my answer a couple of different ways. Number one, overall, I'm not into buying much of the information concerning alien races trying to help us and to help us. They've been promising for as long as I can remember, since the 60s, that they're going to save the planet, fix the ozone hole, upgrade our DNA, and do all kinds of wonderful things. I just like to know when they're going to get started.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I don't know if I would trust it. I don't know. There's so many things going on right now with disclosure on both ends. So that in America and here in Canada, that, I mean, even the people that are working on it, it's iffy. So I would question it.
Well, one thing that I might add to that is I'm always open to people's input, and I've had people even this last week write me and tell me that let us help you out. You're a great guy and everything, but we want to introduce you to the Galactic Council. And I said, that sounds like something on Star Trek. I said, maybe that's where they got it. I said, but my point is that if your alien is real and all of that, I'll give you an address or a time and a place and a location, and where no weapons will be there, no one will be harmed, and let's meet. And I have had at least a dozen primary people who aspire to this belief tell me that their alien will be there, that Ashtar or whomever, the different alien leaders or whatever, will meet me at blah, 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 and so on. No one's ever shown up at any time, anywhere, the only time I've ever met an alien is when I was abducted, and they weren't there to help me, so to speak. They're there to do their job, whatever that was.
Okay, so let's get into that. Gary, thank you so much for the super chat. Don't worry about missing out. Thanks for tuning in when you can, and I appreciate that. I support you too, you and UAPX and the whole team there. We got to reach out soon. Thank you for that. So I always ask, the first question is, why are you the way that you are? And what I mean by that is, how did you get here? So like, this is an impressive, length of time that you've spent and credentials. You're well decorated in the field, but how did that start? Like, how did you get here?
That's a good question. I'm sure there are people out there would like to know that in another way. But basically, my history of time is in the UFO phenomena. My event started as a captive audience. By that, I mean, that's when my abduction started at age 4. And I remembered as a child the event quite well. I have not had hypnosis or memory recovery or other techniques to help me remember that. I remember a great deal as in the event. The first thing I noticed in my first event, well, let me summarize. I had approximately 10 events over 13 years. Event about every year and a half, they would come back and do something else. And my events ended when I was 17. There were 5 entities that showed up in my room, in my home, literally. That night, at age 17, they were not the alien. We can go into that later if anyone has an interest. And those 5 entities that showed up there gave me a kind of a rough time. I ended up with broken ribs, verified by the Veterans Administration, who did the examination on me later. And then my events ended at age 17. I thought, great, wonderful, yay, and all that. But the problem is, I had a son who was 6 years old, and they came and they got him. That changed me from someone interested in the UFO phenomenon, wondering what all that strange stuff is, to someone that literally began to hunt them. And when I say hunt, I don't mean beat up, attack, want to kill or something like that. I simply mean I want to find evidence. I want to know who they are, what they're doing, and that's really
when you say they got your son, what do you mean by that? Like, did they?
Well, they came and picked up my son in an abduction event when I woke up on my own at about 2:30 in the morning, and I ran as fast as I could down the hallway into the living room because I knew my son was not in his room. I knew he wasn't there. And I saw my son standing, 6 years old, standing in the dining room area, looking out the back door window. And long story short is, I asked him, he stood there for a long time. I said, "What are you looking at?" And he said, "The little red light." Well, that's the screen memory. That's leftover. That's to keep you there. And then when they're finished after that, you go back to your room and so on, and you tell everybody you had a bad dream or whatever. At that point, I knew exactly that they had abducted him because the exact feeling when they always came and got me was exactly what woke me up. I knew they were there in the home. And so it really upset me because now it's personal. I mean, if you abduct me, I'm a big guy. I can take care of it. I'll figure it out. I'll deal with it. Problem is, whenever you come after my children,
Yeah,
I'll come after you. And I mean, I'll do it in any way I can to do whatever I can to protect my kids. Anybody that harms children or abducts them, in my opinion, abduction is real simple terms as a cop. It has real simple terms. It's a criminal act. It's that simple. I mean, I always turn it around. I always ask people, if it's okay for them to abduct my kid, is it okay if I abduct them? And of course, the answer is no. That's immoral. I find the double standard shocking.
It's interesting too, because as I mentioned before, I'm a private investigator. I own a private investigating firm, and I also have a security company too. And we're often assisting police with crimes and things like that too. And I'm often investigating things to find the truth of things. And I share the feeling of this abduction phenomenon being a crime. It's no matter what the entity may be or may not be, depending on interpretation, it's still an intrusion, it's still an invasion, it's still there's still a lot of trauma that's associated with it, and that can't go away. Once that happens, it happens. We know the event happened. Figuring out who caused it and what was responsible, that's subjective later on, and many different people can have opinions. But the root of it, because we know when those events happened, we know that there was something there that shouldn't be there, and we know that we were removed from one place to another place. So, what happened after that then?
Well, rather interestingly, my son rigged up a bow and arrow with a compound bow, aimed it toward his door the next night, so that anyone came inside that door would have been shot with an arrow, literally with a broadhead arrow through the chest, if that had been about 4 foot tall. So that kind of gives you a hint that he believed that it had happened, and it was not a quote unquote positive experience that you just couldn't deal with in your consciousness.
Yeah, because there's a state of fear, right? A state of protection needed to be there. That's dangerous. You ever think, you obviously knew about that, right? You weren't going to go into the room, accidentally get shot.
I didn't know about that. He did that all on his own at 6 years old. And the thing that bothered me, of course, anyone that walked in that room and opened that door would have fired. And but he didn't know that. All he knew was that, and I should reference this a little bit by saying the event was not only not positive, but it was pretty horrific. He later told me a few days later that as we were walking down the street, he said, "Dad, after that event happened the other night, my consciousness has been changed." I said, "What do you mean, son?" And he said, "I no longer care for people as I did before." That really troubled me as a father.
Yeah, there's some depression there, or some anxiety or social anxiety, I guess, as a result, and that reinforces the seriousness of the event. So, in his words, or has he ever explained to you or conveyed to you what he believed it to be? And have you investigated to a point to convince him otherwise, or do you share what's where are we at with that?
Well, the fact is that his events continued, and later he moved to Brazil as a married a young lady, and they moved to Brazil. She fled to the United States to get away from the alien. Ended up meeting my son. I thought that was rather interesting. They married, and then they moved back to Brazil. Talk about jumping into the frying pan then into the fire. So one day I'll just settle it this way and say he was in the home asleep, and Brazilians often 2 or 3, 4 different family members of their own family will live in the same house because living there is extremely expensive. And his wife and her mother were in the kitchen cooking and doing whatever, and they kept hearing a noise in the bedroom, and they went in and opened the door where my son was sleeping, and they saw a very large being dressed in black with a large black coat, black hat, the whole 9 yards. Some people refer to it as a mib, sitting on top of him while he was asleep, choking him. And as soon as they opened the door, they were horrified, and it looked over and told them in the most blunt and awful language to shut the blankety blank door, which they did immediately and left him in there. And so his events have been ongoing in that respect, and I think that there are other things that some of your audience may know about as well and may identify with some of this stuff.
Yeah, like I've seen a lot in my experience too with the cloaks, the hats, the men, the MIPS, so the men in black, essentially. What happened after that? So you have an event at age 4, and then a series of events for the next 13 years till about 17. And then a few years passed, then you had a child, and the child turned 6. Anything in between that, or?
There is.
Okay.
I think I should underline this a little better now.
Yeah.
At age 4, I realized somebody was in my room, and I sat up very quickly, and I saw a skinny little man, about 4 foot tall, walking toward the wall, and I thought, he's going to bump into the wall. I didn't know he had brought me back through the wall with him, put me in bed so that I wouldn't remember. And of course, now I'm looking at him, and as I said, he's going to bump into the wall. He turned around, and and I heard him say something which I've never heard in my head before, because it was all skull to skull contact, so to speak. And he said, "It's awake." And I realized he's talking about me, because there's no one else in the room but me and him. And as he turned around, I was stunned. He had large black eyes that were perfectly round, about 1.5 inches across. And he's not the elliptical eyes you see in the Hollywood version. This was in 1952. And as I looked at him, I was stunned. Of course, kids see things. As an investigator, you know this. When you ask them to describe stuff, they'll do it differently than adults will. And the first thing I noticed as I looked at the entity was, where are your clothes? It's wintertime, it's freezing in my room, and how could he be wandering around, and what's he doing in our house? And he's got no clothes on. And as I looked looked at his face, I saw his eyes, of course, which were most captivating. He had almost no nose, a tiny little slit for a mouth, no ears. And I noticed that he didn't have any nipples on his chest, and he didn't have a belly button, and he didn't have as a little kid would describe it, he didn't have a TT. And I said to myself, where is his TT? What's wrong with this guy? Mm-hmm. And I couldn't figure any of that out. I mean, how could a person be that way? So as an adult, of course, an investigator, I realized if you don't have a navel, you weren't born. Mm-hmm. If you don't have genitalia, you don't procreate. You are hatched, cloned, manufactured, or you got here some other way. You didn't get here the way we do.
Yeah, yeah, see, a lot of people report them not having clothes, and I always wondered, are they not wearing clothes, or are they wearing clothes like a suit that looks different than our typical clothes underneath, that just looks different? So maybe they're not naked at all, they're just wearing, like a super suit or something like that, a space suit. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, certainly I've thought of that, and in rare cases we do have that reported. But by and large, the small gray is not having clothes among the alien, in my opinion, is a sign of rank, and it's the lowest form that you can have. The Nazis, whenever they would take Jewish and other prisoners, especially Jews and people they didn't like, gays and so on, they would strip them down to no clothes at all and just dehumanize these people as best they could. The alien, in my opinion, is built on a kind of militaristic structure. And when you see an alien with clothing, lab coat or whatever, if it's not a screen memory, it is often a sign of rank, and that they're in a position of great importance compared to others.
Yeah, now that would make sense. Now, of course, I know you mentioned that's of your opinion as well, and we don't really have enough data to confirm whether that's the case to be, at least in my experience anyways. I do see in cases that I've investigated, there are other beings that look similar that do wear clothing, and as they're described, they appear to be in charge, according to the witness testimony. So I can, I'm not sure that that's the case for all of it, but I can kind of validate in a way that I've heard that before. I've investigated cases myself that is similar to that, and it's strange that they would do that. But I don't think they're naked. I think there's a spacesuit under there. Would make sense. Maybe they look like something underneath, but I don't know. Have to catch one, right?
Well, we've actually seen some female versions of the gray, and the witnesses involved in those cases described them also as being without clothing. And in those particular cases, they notice, in these cases, usually it's women who describe this, but not often, not always. And in their case, they described the same thing. But the idea of them having clothing, usually the clothing, I'll ask people in great detail how they describe every detail of the alien. And if they're wearing clothing, generally they'll mention that they have on a super tight suit and so on. It's very, very tight fitting and so on. And sometimes even with an emblem on it. But by and large, some of the worker drones, so to speak, the smallest version of them, they not only, in a lot of these cases, don't have clothes, but their IQ says a great deal about their workload and what they're qualified to do and not qualified. The gray I'm talking about and referring to generally has an IQ of about 80, which is a moron. And the reason is, well, I can give a reason, that's my opinion. But the fact is that they make huge mistakes. They put you in the wrong bed. They put your clothes on inside out. They leave telltale signs. They leave their calling card that they've been there because they make huge mistakes. Sometimes they'll move your furniture the wrong way or leave your clothing at the end of your bed. And the things if you didn't want somebody to know you were abducted, you wouldn't do those things. They make mistakes.
So, it's interesting that you phrase it that way. You mentioned that because like they're not perfect. So like if they're not perfect and they're making are you sure they're aliens? Maybe they're human. Like humanoid, maybe perhaps of this, not extraterrestrial, but like it sounds like if it's, to me that kind of sounds like they're new, so they have to be trained, or they're maybe they're just not very intelligent, as you said, with a low IQ. And if they have a low IQ, that kind of changes the whole opinion of the higher being more intelligent than us. They should be on top of that.
Ryan, in my research, what we've discovered over the years is that there are at least 3 different types of these gray beings. Some of them appear to be mechanical. Some of them appear to be biomechanical, and some of them appear to be a sentient being. But when I say sentient, I mean to the point that they have their own intelligence, but they are basically not functional without instructions. And unfortunately, they sometimes can't carry out those instructions very well. For instance, if you do certain things in your contact event, and I've shown people how to defend themselves in some of these instances, if you do certain types of mental or physical activity, they'll often leave because they don't know how to deal with that. They know how to do their job, but nothing more than that. And unless someone is using them as an avatar, and that means the person running the show at that point is far and more intelligent and working through that alien, then they're going to make serious mistakes. And one of the things we like to do is to have abductees do things incorrectly or not follow instructions well, so that the alien will literally make mistakes. And in one case, I had a lady, she actually scratched the alien and got something which she believed to be a skin or whatever underneath her fingernail. So this is the kind of evidence I want, not. I want
that's biological, that's forensic, that's residual evidence. That's something you can measure. That's good. That's so it's interesting that you mentioned Avatar, because one of the member comments here from Stacey, she says many people say that small grays are robots. So would you subscribe to that at all, or is that possible?
Well, as I mentioned, there are three different kinds of the grays, the little guys, in my opinion. Now the taller gray, the one who is a lot smarter than they are, who will often be the one doing a surgery or a so-called surgery or implantation or whatever, he's the one that's in charge, and the others are terrified of him because they live in a structure not like ours, and it is quite severe. The punishments apparently are severe for mistakes. They don't. I mean, little grays are like toasters. They got a million of them, and the replacement one is nothing. They just swap them out. It makes no difference. So that if you study the character of the little gray, whenever the larger gray is around, you'll see him acting afraid and trying not to make any mistakes and so on. And the reason is that probably his life will be over if he screws up, so to speak.
Now, you mentioned smaller grays and larger grays. How much larger is the larger gray in comparison to the smaller gray, like in height difference, I guess?
Generally speaking, the larger gray will be about 5 foot tall. Some of them will appear larger, and they are reported so. But generally speaking, when the first larger gray I saw, the boss, as I often referred to him, because the little ones they do everything he says with great speed, as fast as they can. The taller one has got an IQ of, in my opinion, about 130, 135 maybe. He's a lot smarter. He calls the shots. He knows what the job is, and he's going to get it done.
Yeah. We have a comment from one of our members, Karen Holton. She says there are sources who claim that the grays are created by humans. Apparently, S4 is where they surgically altered human children who were born with deformities and Down syndrome. What do you think about that?
I can't agree with that because the Down syndrome has a very specific meaning and a specific mentality. The aliens that I've met during my 13 years of involvement, that was not the case. The idea that can humans alter or catch a gray or modify him or whatever, that sort of thing for their own purposes, like you hear these stories out of Area 51 as an example, that some of the grays out there are actually byproducts or something they made, hatched or whatever, cloned. That's possible. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that specifically the grays of the alien variety from them has a very limited intelligence. And I can go into great detail over that, but from my own experiences, where we set up a trap this was out in, I brought 7 top investigators out with me to the Snowmass Wilderness. We had an abductee that got abducted there reportedly every year. And so we went out and set a trap, literally, to see if we could get the alien to show up. And they did. And one of the ones that showed up was different than the alien that I'd ever seen. It was very small. But again, I accessed him the same way I do any alien, same skull-to-skull contact. And I was absolutely stunned. He had not received any instructions yet. There was nothing literally in his consciousness, nothing. The only thing he did that was similar to which people report camping is it scratched on the back of my tent. And they're scratching on the back of your tent not because they're trying to wake you up. somebody in the craft is supposed to be in charge. They're supposed to nuke your tent, as I call it, so that they can walk through it.
Mm-hmm.
And when he scratches, he's confused because the tent is not opening. He can't figure that out. He's supposed to take you or do whatever. Some of them will take you out to the front of the tent, but sometimes, in our case that night, they scratched on the side of the tent in several cases. And the reason I think they didn't open the tent is because they saw me on the inside waiting with a Cutco knife ready to take him to the autopsy table, so to speak. And
Right.
that's the reason he kept scratching. He couldn't figure out, why can't I get in? Well, somebody, obviously a little smarter than he is, saw me on the inside of that tent waiting for him.
Okay. You mentioned earlier with an experiencer going in and scratching, and then you were able to extract residual evidence, so some forensic stuff under their nails. That is something that you can measure. Were you able, like, did you actually get a sample from that and study that?
And we have a number of different kinds of evidence. From the individual that gave me the one sample, I am not completely convinced that that is in fact part of the alien, so to speak. There are certain telltale signs of evidence and the way it's collected. For instance, one of the better senses I have of good evidence in the alien phenomena is when they touch you, if they physically touch you or physically take you, they will often leave a physical fluorescent trace on you, such as this is something I discovered in 1992 when we were interviewing a lady who was a millionaire and she couldn't understand why she was having these events and so on. And after the initial introduction and or meeting and discussion, I said, "May I look you over with a black light?" And she says, "What is that for?" And I said, I have a suspicion that we're missing evidence. And I said, "I'd like to just look over your face, neck, your exposed arms, and so on." And she said, "Well, certainly." And as I did, I found a fluorescent mark on the inside of her arm that was quite large, about the size of a little mango orange. And it was in the form of a Mandelbrot set. Now, and it was in fluorescence, a remarkable find. And the Mandelbrot set, for your audience, these are fractal. It's in fractal geometry. The meaning of it is that of order and chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're centered in the middle of it, that's order. If you're centered on the outside edge, that's where chaos is going to be. Constant change, good, or whatever you want to call it, it would be chaos to a lot of people. If you're in life, if you're using that as a metaphor, you kind of want to be on the outside edge. In my opinion, that's where I like to be. If you want to be safe and kind of keep everything on even keel and not know anything more than what you're basically going to learn in life in general, you want to be in the middle. But in her case, we found fluorescence, and we found numerous cases of fluorescence, even to the point that John Schuessler, the vice president of MUFON at the time, who was running a group outside, actually in the NASA area, called Revisit, asked me to come do a presentation on some of the evidence we did discover. And one of them was fluorescence. We have about a dozen samples so far that we want tested. And the problem is the testing on this stuff runs about $14,000 a piece. So people always say, "Well, when are you going to get that tested? When are you going to get all this stuff done?" Well, I actually conducted 27 surgical interventions so far at my own expense.
So
I wanted
to ask you about that, because I don't recall reading anything that mentioned that you're a surgeon in your bio. So how were you qualified to do that?
I'm not a surgeon. I conducted the surgeries. Okay. Surgeons, is an example in the last one we did in India.
Okay.
I went to, had an abductee. there that, and I'd questioned them for a long time, and I was thoroughly convinced that they not only had one implant, but which is very rare, they actually had three. And so I finally went to India on my own expense, and went to a specialized hospital and talked to the owner of the hospital and the surgeon involved, and told them I didn't mention the word alien or anything else because I prefer people not to know anything for their part until later.
Right.
And I told them what I wanted to do, that we're going to pay for the surgery, etc. They were excited and said, we'll be glad to do it. I said, we're looking for an unknown anomalous object here. We don't know what it is. It's going to be under the skin, and this is what I want done. Here's you're going to have to take my instructions because you're just the mechanic, so to speak. You're going to take the object out, but you don't know what I want. You don't know how we want it. You don't understand. I said, I have to have an elliptical insertion of your scalpel, and here's what I have to have. This is the type of tissue we're looking for, and there's going to be a biological cocoon around the object itself, and I have to have some additional tissue so we can check to see if there's a proteinaceous coagulum there that we can examine, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. He was sat there and says, wow, I'm all in. Let's go. And so we did the surgery.
It's interesting. Now that makes me feel a little bit more comfortable that someone who's qualified to do the surgery is doing the surgery, but there's nothing wrong with you conducting it because you know exactly what you're looking for. I'm surprised that, I guess they do anything for money, to allow the surgery to go through. And the host, like the subject, the experiencer, was okay with that, the whole procedure.
Oh, she was the one that contacted me with another couple of people out of India. But
was she from India as well? Like, was that home base that you were doing that?
Yes,
okay, so there's a bit of comfort there with the culture.
But she was in another country at the time and flew all the way in just for this surgery.
Okay, and so surgery is done. What was extracted?
The object extracted, like I said, there were 3 implants, and I couldn't tell her nor the assistants there with me, nor did I tell the surgeon anything. But in my opinion, since again I've done this for a long, long time, and let me reference this way. This will make it a little simpler. When I was 4 years old in my abduction, the alien at one point turned me off. And your listeners will probably understand that they basically switch you off, and you don't remember anything. Okay. Well, I was so alarmed by the circumstance, I don't know how I did it, but I switched myself back on. And he didn't realize I'm listening to you. Mm-hmm. While he's thinking or communicating, I'm listening to him. Now, the reason I bring that up is because it was an accident. It wasn't because I was particularly smart or anything like that at 4 years old, but I learned how to turn myself back on. So in these events for the 13-year period where the alien is abducting me and they're switching me off and so on, I'm switching myself back on. Because people always ask the question, how do you know so much about the alien? Have you read a lot? No, that's not how I learned about the alien. I switched myself back on without them knowing it. And now I'm listening to them talk among each other about what they're really up to. That's the real reason. So having said that, I can answer your question now. Okay. I knew that these 3 implants inside this lady, the first one was designed for us to find it. It's a red herring. It's not, you're wasting your time if you think you're going to get, quote unquote, the real evidence. The real evidence, and I'll give you a good example. The surgeon, after the surgery, I told him I wanted him to look at an implant inside her. I didn't say implant, I said object. Notice the object there inside her side. And he was visibly shaken. He said, oh my God, Mr. Sims, if you come back to India, please let me be the surgeon to do this. This is what is that thing? That's amazing. And he's all excited and freaked out and everything. That's not the object we're looking at here in her above her clavicle. That's in the skin. That's not it at all. The one they didn't want us to get was that one. And that's just the way it is. I mean, if you think you're going to just simply do whatever willy-nilly, and you've got class act alien evidence, in most cases you're going to be real surprised. They're not in their deceitfulness. They're very good about hiding evidence.
That's a good lead up to my next question. Like, in your opinion, what is the most dangerous misconception being with right now regarding the abduction and implant phenomenon?
That number one, that I think that their purpose is to make sure that you don't remember, or if you do, that you remember something totally different. And I'll carry this over to Dr. John Mack when I met him in Istanbul, Turkey. It's a long story, but I'll make it extremely short. I told Dr. John, I said, here's the deal. I said, I can take many of your contactees that you worked with. He said, yes. And I said, I can hypnotize that person 10 times and get 10 continuous stories about their event. I said, you know as well as I do, they were not abducted for an infinite amount of time. He said, what are you saying? I say, not only do screen memories exist, screen memory is done by the alien. It is the perfect, they are the innovators and if not the perfect perfectionist of false memory syndrome. You know, a 3-foot owl took me, you know, in the middle of the night. He had large black eyes. There aren't any 3-foot owls taking you out of your house down the street to a UFO. It's not an owl. It's something else with large black eyes. But anyways, I told him, I said, what you may not know, and I said, I'm just throwing this out. I hope it's useful. I said, there are things called screen dreams. He said, what's a screen dream? A screen dream is a nonsensical story that will go on forever. You can hypnotize that person 100 times if you like, and that story will go on. I assure you, they were not abducted for 2 weeks of their life continuously. They weren't. The event usually lasts from 1 to 3 hours, and that's it. Event's over. Why is it they were in the school of higher consciousness, and little droplets of knowledge were falling down and touching me, and I was greatly enhanced in my understanding, and so on and so on and so on. Those kind of narratives will go on forever, literally. That's a screen dream, not a screen. And both of them are false memory syndrome.
Okay. Interesting. What do you, okay. So I do have queued up a few images here. What do we got? 5, 6, 12, 18. Yeah, about 23 images that you were kind of sent, that I picked from the group that you sent. I kind of want to get into those two and maybe dive into the story between how you obtain that evidence. But I'm gonna wait until after the break before we get into that. Have you ever, like, what is your thought on regression hypnosis? Because I know in my research there are situations where implants have been discovered or thought to be in place after regression. So how important do you think regression is?
I think I'll say this to your audience and with great respect. If you're going to use hypnosis, make sure the hypnotist knows what they're doing. He said, "Well, I'm a certified hypnotherapist." And I said, "I understand that." Somebody asked
certified by whom?
Hey, thank you.
And for how long? How long was the course? Yeah.
If you're not skilled with the alien, you don't know how they think. You don't know how they process. You don't know how they deceive. You don't know any of this stuff. You probably don't have any business doing that kind of regressive work. A lady asked me the other day, she said, "Well, are you a hypnotist?" I said, "Yes, ma'am, I am. I think I can say that." She said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, I'm a master hypnotherapist." She said, "What's that mean?" I said, "That means I certify people like you. I'm the guy that does that. And second of all, I'm a medical hypnotherapist. Third, I'm a hypnotic anesthesia therapist. That means when you go to surgery, either for an implant or whatever, I can do hypnotic anesthesia with you. You'll heal up 3 to 5 times faster, and you don't have to sign a form that says, if you die, I'm not responsible, like you would with an anesthesiologist."
I would stray away from the word certification. Certification is much different than like a degree. A PhD would be ideal, but then they're unable to practice.
Well, interestingly enough, I asked Dr. John Mack, I said, when I realized he didn't understand the screen dream issue, I said, where did you take your training in hypnotherapy? And he said, from non-professionals. And I laughed and I said, why? And he said, because they were better than the professionals. And I laughed and I said, you figured that out. I said, I'm really interested that you know that.
And that's the challenge, because a lot of us, like in the pseudoscience, receive these certifications, and the practice makes sense. The science comes from other places that are drawn, that we all pull from different sources. But there's liability, right? Because we don't have, it's a challenge. For me, hypnosis is tricky because it depending on who the hypnosis is, it's misleading. They could mislead, or they could guide the person into believing a certain thought, depending on what it is. So I would use a similar practice as to what you did with the extraction of the implant. Is I would direct the hypnosis so that and make sure that certain questions were asked, so that wasn't leading to verify the notes that I already had for the reason to suggest regression when I already hit the wall. And at that point, if it's controlled in such an environment, I would use it as a tool, similar to a lie detector test, where a lie detector test just measures the temperature in the body and the heart rate and all those other things, but it's just a tool. But the results of the lie detector test don't mean anything unless you have a case built prior to that to kind of catch them in a lie and things like that too. So I that's just my thoughts on that. And to the audience and everyone that's listening, I always recommend, if you're going to do hypnosis, make a report first, get it documented, have it investigated first, get all the facts collected before you do it. Because as soon as you do it, there's no turning back. Your mind will get unlocked, and you could be told things that aren't true and misguided just so the person doing the service gets paid.
You're right on target there. If a person, my advice to anyone wanting to do regressive hypnosis, do it after your case is over, not in the beginning. The first bullet fired at your case is, you hypnotized that person and believe all that stuff. It's all a lie. The second problem for the hypnotist, that's why I say you need somebody who knows what they're doing, understands how the alien actually thinks. If you don't understand that and you're a hypnotist, you're going to get pulled into the screen memory thing, and before it's over, you're going to be a specialized hypnotherapist who deals only with people and you're going to go off into everything, every direction you can imagine in hypnotherapy with the abductees, contactees, and literally you'll go down the primrose path of the screen dreams and screen memories, which I assure you right up front are false memories. That's not what really happened. It's something else.
And then once they're in a comfortable setting where someone believes them and they encourage that thought process, that's what I'm saying, it's hard to go back. And the way I kind of do it, the way I use it, is to verify and validate the credibility of the experiencer, to see if what they say under regression a few months later matches up to what was documented, a few months prior, right? To kind of vet out the credibility of the statement and get additional facts.
Well, one additional thing that might be useful we do, if we do hypnosis at all, we use a variety. The reason people use hypnosis is because that's the only tool in their toolbox. That's it.
Well, it's not the only tool. It's the only mainstream tool that's been popular.
If you've got other tools and you know what you're doing, there's memory recovery can be done in different ways. But the main thing I like to see a hypnotist do, if they're going to do this, and it's all agreed upon, is you can verify a lot. You have to test to see whether the person is in memory or Memorex. Memory is one thing, and Memorex is something else. Memorex is the false memory, so to speak. It's the screen memories. I was in the school of higher consciousness, and they did this, they did that, and so on. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But your hypnotist has to be able to separate all that one of the ways it is useful is for him to have you describe in your event the day, the time, the date, and specifically the weather conditions. I mean, let me ask you a question. What were the weather conditions on August 17th, 1977? You don't have a clue. I don't.
I wasn't born
But
then, so
if you're getting in real memory,
yeah.
in hypnosis, they'll describe everything. If they were involved, they were outside involved in that day, they'll tell you how the weather went, that every detail of it. And you can compare that to the weather records. As you go back into the weather records, you can compare and see if you got memory or Memorex either one.
And that's the change in technology these days. We didn't have records to go back on before my time. I have an advantage as a private investigator to have a plethora of databases and data online, historical data, because like back in the day, that stuff didn't exist and you had to go back, like you were either there or you weren't. You had to trust testimony. And so many things have changed, and we have experiencers today, talking about events that happened before the collection of this data. So there's There's a lot of challenges. So on that note, now that the U.S. government has admitted that UFO and UAP it potentially might be a real thing worth investigating, how do you feel about
that? Yeah. I used to work in the CIA in covert operations.
Okay.
Intelligence community is based on lies.
Uh-huh.
They're not all bad. What I mean by that is simply you hired us to lie to you, the American public, and we did. When a saucer craft was found at Roswell, the military told you the truth. We found a saucer craft, we found a UFO, whatever it was. The intelligence community almost immediately came involved in that. The boys that were forming basically the CIA at the time, those people, they came in and said, hey, wait a minute. No, you didn't. We've got to change the narrative. So they did what they did from then on. They developed a thing we call a cover story. The cover story is we found a weather balloon. Now that's the truth. Believe us, we're the government. We're telling you the truth.
But they told you that a few days after.
So that's the new truth.
Right.
And like I said, you hired them to lie to you. Mm-hmm. And they did. Now, how well is it working?
Well, yeah. That's the challenge. So
how do you know what the truth is?
I don't, and that's why I investigate for myself, and that's why we have the Experiencers Support Association, so we can weed out the crap. So then, with what's happened in the hearing when they're talking about it, is this a lie? Is this a controlled lie, in your opinion?
Let me put it this way: they were looking at several pieces of metal, and during this time, privately. Mm-hmm. Two of those pieces of metal were my own abductees, people that I know. Mm-hmm. And I know quite a bit about that because when they were doing the testing, the so-called congressional testing, my friends were told what they were finding, and then they would call me and tell me. And I'm sure that didn't go over real well. But the fact is that one of the pieces of metal, which is that they were looking at, those two pieces of metal in particular were exuded or spit out or thrown out or dropped or whatever from a UFO with witnesses. Two witnesses in the first case, the Bob White medal, and then later another piece of metal by Ben Fogg, and his entire family were outside their house, and UFO was by their house, and it dropped this hot like metal onto the ground, very similar to the Bob White case. And there it was. And it was white hot, but it was like a shuttle tile on the shuttle. They may be white hot, but they're actually fairly easy to touch. They're warm, but they won't burn you. And it cooled very rapidly. And these are the metals they were looking at. Now, although they kind of leaked that they were looking at certain metals and so on, the real metals that they didn't tell you about, that's the cover story. This is the real story that you can find out if you dig. But the real cover story were the metals that they didn't tell you about. That was the stuff they found at Roswell and other sites where other crashes took place. That's the metal they're not going to tell you about. You're not going to find out much about. And if people do talk to you about it, that do know something about it, they're endangering their career, if not possible prison time. Because you sign off on that stuff, as I did, and you're debriefed when you leave, and you sign your life away, saying that you didn't see anything, you didn't hear anything, you don't know anything. That basically your life is kind of just a generic blank at that point concerning the intelligence community.
So I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here. You don't have to answer this question if you don't want to, but just my thought process, thinking with your history, your career, your knowledge, and all this other thing, and going through this movement as we are. Lou Elizondo, can we trust him? Yes or no?
The answer to that is I've only met Lou Elizondo one time. It was on the phone I was with a police officer who was a very good friend of his. They served together in Afghanistan, and my police officer buddy wanted me to meet Lou, and I did. He was quite gracious, friendly, and all that. And that's all I know about him.
What about, okay, so that's him as a person when you're meeting him, a good character, like people can be nice. But I mean, the story that he's been working and the things that he's been saying as a counterintelligence agent, is he one of the guys paid to lie, or is he telling us the truth?
I'm always watching people in the intelligence community, especially people that claim to be, and Lou has been, for sure. The question is Lou telling the truth all the time? He's very guarded in how he delivers his message, and he should, because there are certain things it better keep his mouth shut about. There are other things that I personally have a feeling about that we ought to be talking about as a country and as a world, because this stuff involves everyone.
Yeah.
And I understand the intelligence part of any operation needs to be kept quiet. That goes without saying. But the fact is, there are other things, and this is where one of the things I do like about Lou is he has brought to the front of things about the intelligence community which people would not have known if he had not brought that forward. Is this a disclosure? In my opinion, no. But it's an attempt by some people in the intelligence community to make some type of disclosure that is at least beneficial to the United States people. Is that going to have cover stories and so on in it? Yes, of course they will. They're going to protect their interest to no end. The intelligence community is generally divided into two big categories: one who want us to know, and the others who don't want you ever to know. They want you to keep giving them billions and billions of dollars every year in black budgets that you nor Congress has any authority to go in and investigate.
It's like the proof is in the pudding. Like, there's so many things that are happening as a result to his existence and his claims, and there's some things that he does that is questionable. However, innocent until proven guilty. Things are moving towards an answer, and if we get an answer, it will validate some of the things that he says, and then we can go back and perhaps change opinions on the questions that we have, proving that it's true. But at the same time, the evidence that has come forward has suggested that they're drones. So according to the military account, is saying that these videos that Lou's claim to fame at the beginning have already been debunked. So where do you sit? Where do you feel on that? Because you got a government agency, or are they the ones that are paid to cover it up, and Lou's the guy who's paid to tell the truth? Like, how do we trust that?
Well, it's a great question, and it's going to be a wait and see type situation. Like anybody else, I'll give you an example right in the UFO community. There are people, two in particular, one of them has recently died, that claim that they have been to hundreds of UFO crashes and they know all about everything. And I've listened to their statements, and I don't believe a word of it. And you say, well, why is that? Because I actually have evidence of a UFO crash. I've never reported to anyone, and the military and others were involved, and so on. And I have good, solid intel on it. There are certain things that are true in UFO crashes that are not true in these people's stories. If they had been there, they would have known that. They don't know that, and that tells me a lot already. So maybe they were in part of a cleanup operation or something. But generally speaking, if a ship crashes, as an example, I don't care if you're part of the military or what you are. I don't care. I don't care what your clearance is. You're there to secure the area, nothing more. You will not do anything else, and you better not, for good reasons. The second thing is that a specialized team will come in. I can even tell you what their patch looks like. But the point is that team comes in a short period of time, and you're evacuated from the area. I don't care what your skills or what your rank or your position is. You're no longer involved. After that, you're going to be debriefed. You're going to sign your life away with pain of imprisonment if you don't sign it. Mm-hmm. That's just the way it is. And if you're in one of these events, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't been in one of these events, then you're making the rest of it up, saying, oh, I do all this all the time. No, you don't. You actually don't. The fact that you don't have certain health conditions tells me right off the bat that you don't know what you're talking about.
Perhaps. Okay, so we're going to pause right here, but we will continue after a message from our sponsors. If you are listening to the audio-only version, head over to youtube.com/Experience Support Association. You will see the videos that go with the audio. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, a podcast by the Experience Support Association, and we will be right back.
It's your business. It's your property. Your assets are worth protecting. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services specializes in patrolling and inspecting residential or commercial property against fire, theft, vandalism, terrorism, and illegal activity. People and buildings are monitored to prevent crime. Keep your property, your people, and your assets safe from threat. Our elite staff are dual licensed private investigators and security guards. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services. Go to blacklightiss.com.
The same thing that draws aliens to our planet is the same thing that draws us to others. Exploration, curiosity, sustainability of life. That's why we go. It would make sense as to why they're visiting here.
Travis! Quit playing around, man. Get back here. Travis!
The last thing I remember was this numbing shock. Stunning sort of a feeling. Very powerful.
Get away from me!
I was just out of my mind with fear, just screaming the whole time.
It's been theorized that aliens prefer remote areas because they don't want to attract attention. Whatever it is that they're doing, they would want to do that in a less populated area. There are multiple accounts of the same thing from people from all over the world. People that do not know each other, do not live in the same cultures, and they're all looking up, they're all seeing things in the sky. So it would be naive of us to think that we're
Ryan is one of Canada's leading new UFO investigators. He conducts and oversees UFO investigations on a constant basis and was really taken by his research. He's compiled a tremendous amount of data regarding UFOs in Canada. And just as interesting, he really goes over how UFO investigations are done and what are some of the mistakes that people make when they submit evidence. Note for starters, don't edit your videos or photos before you send them. If you want to hear more follow-up conversation between Ryan and myself, you can go to richardolanmembers.com, where we have a candid conversation on ufology, the paranormal, and more. And remember, while we learn and grow and search for the truth, let's be good to each other.
Welcome to the Observation Deck, a state-of-the-art, one-of-a-kind virtual platform that takes video conferencing to the next level by using avatars to navigate a campus, just like you would in real life. First, you install the application and design your very own unique avatar. Then you're free to explore the various areas of the campus at any time from anywhere. There's so many areas and activities to choose from on the platform. There's a 1,000-seat auditorium, a large expo hall, a movie theater, a nightclub, an art gallery, and even a beach. Come attend a conference or take a class or hear a lecture. Meet new friends and interact directly with presenters. It's all right here on the incredible Observation Deck campus. Where in the world will you go?
Have you ever wondered, or maybe just thought to yourself, if there were others just like you? You know, people with extraordinary abilities, psychogenic advancement, and perhaps unique intuitions. Maybe you just wondered if there were other people who experienced unimaginable, unexplained, or even unusual and paranormal events. Are there people who have more questions, more fears than answers? Well, you're not alone. You've never been alone. We believe you. Sign up for EA today by going to tesacan.org/EA. That's TESACAN.org/EA. Welcome back. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. Have you ever experienced an unexplained event involving the paranormal, UFOs, extraterrestrials, dogman, or any other paracryptid? Head over to our website, www.experiencersupport.org, and submit a report. Let the others who have already reported be that example that proves we are making a difference. And if it wasn't for these reports, we would not be able to do what we do. And for that, we thank you. I'm still here with the alien hunter, Derrel Sims. Here's your website here. thealienhunter.com. Lovely website you got here. So how does one become, like, why alien hunter? Like, hunter specifically, I know you mentioned this earlier, that you don't hunt, but why call yourself hunter? And if you don't hunt, then what other title would you use?
First of all, the name alien hunter was given to me by a journalist who was in 1992 or 93. She said she was investigating the case. She says, "Oh my God, you hunt them. You're the alien hunter." Then on Frank Randazzo's magazine, there was a alien head in black background and blood red letters, "The Alien Hunter." That's where the name technically came from. The fact is that I just went ahead and let them continue to use that. And I hunt for evidence. I hunt for evidence of the alien. I hunt for his intelligence. I want to know exactly how he thinks, what he thinks, why he thinks. I want to know who made, hatched, cloned, and manufactured it. I want to know everything. I want to know if there's evidence out there. I want to know if it's available. I want to know how to find it, how to deal with it. And we've done some pretty well in that realm, I think. My real term for alien hunter came whenever they came after my son. After that, I became not just an interested person who was interested in the UFOs or whatever that. In other words, everybody has got a UFO hat, so to speak. Mm-hmm. They're interested in UFOs. Problem is, the UFO hat by itself has been fooled. There are people out there who have scammed us in the past and are still scamming us, in my opinion. And that's the UFO hat. I don't think I use 7 different hats to explore cases when I look at them. I don't think my personal view or my personal opinion or these things are enough. I want a medical hat. I want a scientific hat. I want my Native American hat. I want a spiritual hat. I want an intelligence hat. The intelligence hat is far different than any other hats that I wear because it doesn't care what, quote unquote, anyone thinks of the truth. It only cares what's actually going on and how do I deal with that. Different ways to deal with it, interact with it, and so on. So the UFO hat gets fooled, and it has. And mine's been fooled. So I like to wear 7 different hats. My 7 different hats don't always agree with each other. Sometimes I know things about the alien that my medical or scientific evidence hasn't proven yet. So I know that it's incorrect in that sense of the word. And later, the medical or scientific hat may prove or indicate that phenomena does exist, but I knew it, 30, 40 years before the science caught up to it, because the science, generally speaking, doesn't want to look at the UFO phenomena until, quote unquote, the last year or so.
Understood. So you sent a plethora of images, and I went through and I selected a few that I wanted to use for talking points here. So I'm just going to bring a couple up, and then I'm just going to ask you, and I'm sure the audience is going to ask the same, what is this all about? These 2 images here. Can you see them very well on your screen?
Yes, I'm going to expand my...
Yeah, as long as you can see. I'm trying to make them big enough for the audience to see too.
Yes, the view there is a bruising on the lady. We can tell exactly, literally within a day or so, how old that bruise is. It's very new. It's very red. And what I had, this is the wife of a police officer. Now, you got to understand, she doesn't know anything about aliens, doesn't care about aliens, not interested in aliens. Forget it, not interested. But she keeps getting these bruises on her body from time to time, and she can't figure out where they come from. You say, well, that's from whatever. No, they sleep in different bedrooms. She's very sharp, very articulate. I know these people, have known them for years. She's not interested in this stuff. He takes a black light, shines it on her arm, and he finds fluorescence there. And again, he calls me right away and says, oh my God, what does this mean? I said, well, if the fluorescence is not in a quote unquote 3-fingered modality, so to speak, or 4 fingers or whatever, and a bruising in that sense, or a fluorescence in that, like fingers, this is what we call a procedural fluorescence. Procedural fluorescence has to do with, number one, you got the bruise probably was caused by something machine-like or other. It's a procedure per se. That tells us a lot about who did it, why they may have done it, and how it actually got there.
See that what's interesting too is I know that fluorescence is a tool to use to see bite marks and bruises after the fact in general. So how were you able to determine that this was non-human, not the stereotype, but not the husband, and an extraterrestrial causing the bruise on the arm here?
Well, generally speaking, whenever you get bruised or hurt or something like this, there's not going to be a fluorescence there. The fluorescence I'm talking about will penetrate the skin subdermally on contact. We've known this, and we've had doctors check it. We've had doctors use chemicals and things to try to remove it, and they've never been able to remove it to this day. The fluorescence will usually last. It's like the show on TV, first 48 hours. Within 48 hours, that fluorescence will be absorbed by the body, and you won't find it any further. It'll be a very light trace to nothing. In very rare cases, it'll last longer, but most of the time it doesn't.
I understand the process of that. But what I'm saying is how are you able to determine through this process that there's extraterrestrial involvement?
Well, ultimately you don't know because you weren't there. So in the sense of where you're like, how do I know someone killed someone when we work a murder or an abduction case, which I've worked, and you don't know. Right. You're assuming, and you look for evidence that indicates that is the case, and you make your case. If it works, you go to court, and so on. So
Right.
in this case, we look at the type bruisings. If they are consistent with what we found before, that and I'll give an example. A bruise very similar to that round bruise. A man came to me one day with a round bruise on his arm, and he said, I don't want this. I don't want my name ever to get out. And I said, okay, that's fine. I knew he was a medical doctor in Houston. Also knew he was a police officer. And we talked about his bruise. It's a circular bruise, almost exactly like this one. The only difference was it had needle holes all the way around the perimeter. And
Okay.
I said, what makes you think that's suspicious? And he said, Mr. Sims, I'm a police officer and for many years. And second, I'm a medical doctor. I think I know the difference between bumping my arm. And he said, there are needle holes all in the circle there.
Right.
And then I said, you're not telling me the whole story. Why don't you tell me the whole story instead of leading off with these innocuous little events? And he said, something did happen. And he said, I got up, I got my pistol. I knew something was in the house. My doors were locked. I looked all through the house and didn't find anything. He said, but I knew something was there. I said, something that was what? Tell me specifically. He said, well, I can't prove it. I said, I didn't ask you to prove it. Tell me what you think. He said, it was not human. And then he said, I said, what else are you not telling me? He said, I found the same bruise and the same needle holes on my wife. And I found the same bruise and needle holes on my daughter. He said, I am scared half to death. He said, because we're not like you. And I said, well, you mean weirdos like have these UFO events? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, welcome to the club.
Interesting. What's going on here? These 7 burns from an abduction case. You 2 witnesses to missing time here, and it looks like that triangular shaped burn is about 3 inches in length.
I asked this individual. He weighed. He was a very large man, probably well over 300 pounds, and he said they floated me out, and he described the entities involved and everything. And I said, do you have any evidence of your event other than your personal testimony? He said there were 2 witnesses, and I questioned them. I was very impressed with their details and the lack of details, both, because if you know everything, then you're obviously making it up. The second thing, I said, do you have any evidence, any physical evidence that these events occurred? And he pulled open his shirt and showed me these burns. And I said, those look like cigarette burns. And he said, that's the reason I didn't go to a psychologist. He said, they would have probably put me in a psych ward for burning myself with a cigarette. He said, those are not cigarette burns. I said, I can actually see they're not. But I said, I don't know what they are other than some procedural technique used on you. But they don't appear to be cigarette burns for a lot of reasons. But anyway, he said, I am almost 400 pounds. He said, they floated me out of the house like I didn't weigh anything. How can they do that? He had a lot of questions.
The interesting thing that I see just from my observation when I look for is try to see how systematic this is. And although it appears to be a perfect triangle, these 2 up at the top here, the distance between is not the same distance between over here, but yet they seem to be uniform here. So would that suggest that every single impression was done separately, or was this one impression with one device?
According to him, they were all done separately. It was not a procedural device. It may look like a procedural technique, what we refer to as a procedure. This is not such a thing. This is one of the things that your audience may or may not like to hear, but it's something that I do report because I report on everything, not pieces of things. I'm not here to create a narrative. And what he shows in that event basically is torture.
It could be, or they were looking for something, and kind of like Oak Island, just digging random places to find what they're looking for.
Well, when you hear them scream loud enough, you get the impression it probably wasn't a pleasant meeting.
Understood. That doesn't look like that was pleasant. However, that was done, whether that was self-inflicted or otherwise, it doesn't look very pleasant. What's going on here? What's this?
This is Ann Strieber, the late Ann Strieber, Whitley Strieber's wife, was present when a lady was waiting to talk to me, and Ann was talking to me. She was telling me your view of the aliens, that they're not always doing good things. You're wrong. They're here to help us and fix the ozone hole, make the planet better, upgrade our DNA, and all that sort of thing. I laughed and I said, okay, that's an opinion, and you're welcome to it. This lady was in tears, holding her photographs, and handed them to me. This is one of several, and I said, young lady, I said, people are going to say that you used a suction cup with a candle and created those on your back. And she cried and cried and cried, and was distraught.
I don't think she could do that herself to get
Obviously.
all of the places.
Again, your skeptics will say, "Well, you had your best friend do it," and I totally agree with that. I don't know. I wasn't there. I can only record the information and listen to her story. Her story was quite solid and quite interesting. And again, the distressing part of it was 55% of everyone's communication when you're questioning them in an interview. 55% of their physiology is their communication.
Yeah.
In other words, when I hear somebody saying, "Oh, I was abducted many times, by 11 different kinds of aliens. This one did that, and this one did this, and this one did that," and there's no change in physiology, tone, pitch, and timbre of voice, the person making it up. And they're making it up as fast as they can tell you. And it's easy to catch these people. They're not difficult to catch.
Well,
Anyway, 55% of communication of anyone you're questioning in these events is their physiology. 38% is their tone, pitch, and timbre of voice. And only 7% are the words that they're using.
Yeah, so body language is key, which is why I like doing these interviews live and off the cuff, because we get a good sense and a good reading from not just our guests as well too. I can tell that you are very very involved, and you've done your research too. You spent a lot of time with these individuals. You didn't just take the case and start writing about it or doing something with it. You're quite involved, and I can tell that. This to me looked like a tattoo. Is that what I'm looking at, or what is this?
This was, remember I told you my son married a Brazilian woman who fled Brazil to get away from the alien?
Yeah.
She showed me this on the back of her neck, and I said, "That looks like a tattoo to me." And she got pretty upset and said, "Well, it's not." And I said, "Well, it looks like one." She said, "Well, it's not." I said, "But it looks like one." And she says, I said, "Who took the picture?" And then she kind of hit me pretty hard. She said, "The Federal Policia of Brazil."
Okay.
I said, "Well, they wouldn't be interested in a tattoo." And she said, "I'm not the only person that has it." When I showed this photo when I was in Brazil several times at different presentations, someone from the State Department of Brazil, are you ready for this? The State Department of Brazil came up to me after and said, "Oh my God," he said, "I've seen that exact mark." He said, I have some sense of what it's about. He said, "That's not a tattoo." I said, "It's not a tattoo." I said, "What I didn't tell anybody, this is what the tattoo, this is what the marking looks like after tattoo removal."
Okay.
It didn't work.
So they removed a tattoo?
It didn't know that she went to a tattoo removal place to get this thing removed because it scares her half to death to see it. And that's what it looks like after tattoo removal. Tattoo removal didn't work because it's not a tattoo.
Okay, I understand. Okay, so the procedure didn't work, so because it's not normal. I got you.
And the fact that she turned it into the Federal Police of Brazil, that's not exactly the best thing to do if you're trying to stay private.
So this one here looks like a burn, very significant burn mark on the back of someone's neck.
This is one of probably a dozen people that I have that have got missing chunks of flesh on their body. One of them, I was at a conference speaking one day, and a guy walked up to me. He said, "I'm a professional runner. This is what I do, professional athlete." And I said, "Okay." And then he lifted up his shirt and pulled his pants down about 3 inches on the back of his rear end, and there was a 4-inch by 2-inch missing chunk of flesh, as if it had been cauterized. He said, "I went running one day, had an event. I don't know what they did, but when I came back, this is what's left on my back." And like this guy here, he's just one of a number of people that we could show that have been damaged from their event. And the wounds appear to be cauterized. Some of them appear to be cauterized by an intense ultraviolet radiation. It's a whole process by the alien, based on what we've been able to find out.
You think that one was on purpose or an accident, a removal of some sort?
I can only go with the testimony of the individual. I wasn't there, so I don't know. But according to them, it's alien related. I don't know.
Nope, no, I understand. I'm asking questions just because I don't know what you know.
Your questions are fine.
Yeah, so I mean, I appreciate that. I could. Have you spent time in a courtroom? Have you ever been an expert witness or expert testimony?
Yes.
I can tell. That's why I'm asking. So no, you're not on trial. I'm just literally.
The questions don't bother me in the least.
Yeah, I literally am just trying to see how much you know because I want to learn too. So what's going on here?
This is there were 3 people came to my UFO conference one night here in Houston at the Houston UFO Network, and one of my associate investigators, who's military and in the engineering business, said, "I think you need to come speak to this lady." And I was doing a demonstration with some alien hands and things we had done for replica to show people and get them to identify them. Well, anyway, she shows me the photograph. The girl is 18 years old. Her mother is standing there with her and her sister. And I looked at the photographs and I said, "So what is this?" And she says, "I don't know." And I said, "Who found them?" She said, "My mother." And I said, "Mom, what is that?" She says, "We have no clue." I said, "Well, I'm going to ask you some real straight questions that are, you may take offense to them." I said, "Those are bruise marks. They're approximately a week old at least. And that's, what do you do for a living?" She said, "Well, I raise specialized dogs." And she's a horseman, one of the better in the country, by the way. All of them are horsemen, really, really good. And I talked to her a little bit, and they're all 3 in the family are abductees, which they readily admitted and said, "We wondered if these, the reason we brought the photograph is to ask you if these were related to these events." And I said, "I don't know. I'll have to find out by questioning her at great length." I said, "But the photos are interesting. Most people do not want to show things like this because other speculations are going to be given and they're not going to be nice." Mm-hmm. And anyway, they assured me that this was not due to whipping or someone beating on her or something like that. And I said, "I suspect this is not the first time that they've been found." And she said, "That's correct." And I said, "So you've had events in your family before?" And they admitted that. And that was again, I wasn't there, so I don't know, but I do know the people very well, known them for many years now. And they're as honest as the day is long.
Okay. So what's this one here? So like scratch marks on the chest there.
These scratches, according to the witness, he describes to me a reptile entity causing these scratches. And I said, "Well," I said, I have to put my cop hat on for a minute. I said, "You could have done those yourself, or some woman or anybody could have done that. It could have been done with a particular instrument." I said, "Based on the inflammation I'm seeing, that happened no later than a day or so before." And he said, "That's true." And he remembered the event, and he described the reptile entity. He had the most unkind words for the event, to be sure. And again, you take them at their own word. Dr. Carla Turner, when she was still alive, her husband showed me what was done to his back. And when people would stand and tell Dr. Carla Turner the aliens are here to help us to save the planet and fix the ozone hole and so on, she would have her husband turn around and pull up his shirt, and you could see the horrific scarring that the reptiles had apparently done to his back. This guy had another piece of evidence that interested me. He had some claw marks that had gripped his arm and bruised it severely. And that interested me more than the ones that could have been done there. The claw marks that he exhibited on his forearm, he claims later he got cancer from it. I don't know that to be true. But the claw marks were real interesting to me on the forearm because they left extreme bruising of purple and blue, which meant that it had happened within hours, literally. And he said from time to time they come back and they just leave. I said, you think that's a calling card? And that's basically what he's suggesting.
See, when I was just off to the side, you see my arm kind of going here. I had this kind of big enough that I was able to kind of match my three fingers to the movement there. I found it hard for me to mimic that movement. So either, in my opinion or my assessment, the hand would have to be quite large, or perhaps these first two marks were done first, and then the third one was done afterwards. But then again, acting on the same information, we don't know. But I find it just, to me, it doesn't seem like there's not that consistency on the third. I don't know. That's just what I'm seeing here too. But again, I didn't interview the guy. You have the other evidence too. I'm just making an observation for what I see here. Strange.
It's a lot worse on his arm, I assure you. I've
never
seen
you
anything
too.
like that before.
Yeah, so I have another. So I'm not sure if this is the same individual. Is that him there?
That's the one I'm talking about.
Perfect.
Okay. That was the one that interested me more than the other because of the depth of the bruising, and apparently he was struggling to get away, which would be reasonable in the event if that was the case.
Is this the same person here? This one here?
That's another illustration of again someone being scratched or touched or held down as an example. Sometimes you'll find strap marks on these people's ankles or forearms. We've got a number of cases where they were literally strapped to a table and handled that way. So not a very popular thing to do to somebody if you want to upgrade your DNA or something. This is the reptiles they're different. They are actually quite violent. They're actually very sexual as well, according to the testimony, and it's just they're very intelligent compared to the other alien entities, the so-called 7 varieties that we have visiting Earth.
Okay. What's going on here?
These are scoop marks. The interesting thing about this, the individual sent me the scoop marks. He had one originally, then he got 2. They came back and put another one, and then they came back later and put a third one. He was almost laughing about it. He says, "It's like they're poking holes in me." He said, "What's going on here?" Yeah. And I laughed and I said, "Well, I've got a 5/8 of an inch scoop mark on my shin, which I got when I was 4 years old after they came back the second time." I said, we have examined some of these scoop marks, and some of them appear to be dermatological scoops, according to doctors and others who look at them. And according to the witnesses, and according to one of my abductees who got a scoop mark, but she saw the device that they used to do it, reportedly, and it looked like a pencil-like device, and it would make a strange little noise, and all of a sudden the skin would be missing. A bright light would come out of the base of it, and it would cauterize your skin with an intense, apparent ultraviolet light. That's the story.
Okay. Interesting. All right. The next one I have here is quite interesting. What's going on here?
This is a lady in the early 1990s when I first started collecting evidence from people who are abductees. It's an elderly woman. A lot of people say, well, old people don't get taken. Actually, I've got one lady that's 86 years old and they're still picking her up. In this particular woman, you can see multiple needle-like a device. If it was a needle, it's got to be the biggest needle I've seen. Something you might want to use on a horse as an example. But the penetrations were quite severe, and it obviously was done quite quickly. So it's to her it was pretty horrific. But
So
again, I wasn't there, so I don't know.
Another image that I saved, and I think it looks like the same pattern here, but it looks a little bit more. It looks deep, like scarring or something was happening there.
Mm-hmm.
That does not look comfortable.
Yeah, it's pretty awful. What some of these people go through. We've had people say, "Well, that you're showing they're just testing us with they're testing us with things and so on." In this particular case, this was sent to me. I did not get the story. I would love to have that story, but apparently, I have to say it's very unusual and very weird. Marking, it looks more like a burn or something. They leaned against something that was quite hot, and maybe the alien did it, maybe they didn't. I don't know anything about the story. I found the markings interesting, and I put them in my presentations because I want to know if anyone else out there has markings like that are abductees or contactees.
It's interesting. Okay, this one here.
Again, this is another marking that was interesting to me. It looks like that something was placed on the bicep or the forearm, and then the arm was closed, and whatever it was, whether heat or whatever it was, transferred immediately to the skin and penetrated the skin subdermally on contact. Whether it's alien or not, I don't know, because again, these were one of many of the things that people send me that unfortunately there is no explanation other than this happened to me in my abductions.
Okay. What's going on here? These x-rays.
This was an interesting case in Brazil. The last time I was in Brazil, this was Brasilia, the capital city of Brazil. If you'll pull down the top one further down, there you go. And enlarge it if you will. There you go. It'll help a lot more. Inside this lady's foot, she told me that she had been abducted and that they had done something to her and so on, and she wondered if she had been implanted. And I said, where did they touch you or do whatever? And she said, in the foot. And her husband is a doctor, and I asked him about the event, and he said, well, he never thought about x-raying it. And I said, I questioned him at length and found out he was an abductee too. And the reason that was interesting to me is because abductees generally will destroy, hide, or ignore their own evidence. They do this a lot. Mm-hmm. And so I said, I had him take an x-ray, bring it to me before I left it. And he brought it. I was at the airport and I looked at it and I was stunned. And he says, well, there's nothing there. And I laughed and I said, you're a doctor. You don't see that? And he said, what do you mean? I said, you don't see that needle-like device sticking in between her toes?
Right here. Yeah.
And he said, well, I never saw that before. Again, abductees, I don't care if you're a doctor. You tend to hide, destroy, or ignore your own evidence. And in his case, it was his own wife's evidence. And he didn't even see it until I pointed it out in the x-ray.
Didn't want to do any paperwork. I've had a couple of fractures in my life that, that were ignored on the, that I had to, remind. So I can understand that. That's interesting though. That doesn't look normal to me. So Did anything get extracted from that?
No, we are going back to Brazil, and hopefully this lady will be involved. But the case we're going to do an extraction from is a lady that has an implant in her skull. She had an implant in her skull that literally was the best way to describe it. It's on the front of my book in alien implants. And in the skull, it shows a lifesaver type object deep inside her skull in the brain. And it was there for several years. They found it by accident due to a car accident. They thought she might have broken her jaw because she had her jaw on the front dashboard of the older car back in the late 1988, I think it was. And they took an x-ray from the bottom of her jaw and they saw the object in her skull. And he said, "What in the world is that?" Later, 2 years later, that object moved from one hemisphere of the brain to the other hemisphere. How it got there, nobody knows. The lady is a quote-unquote contactee. She thinks they're here basically to help us save the planet and all that, which is fine. She's a very dear friend of mine and a former federal officer here in the United States, of all things, and she's Brazilian. And the interesting thing is they later took that object out because now it's missing. We do have all the medical records and all the x-rays. And the interesting thing now is she has said, but they came back. And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "There's a pill-like object inside my arm." And I've got it on my website. You can go there and see. And you can see her playing with it. And the object, I said, "Well, I want you to get an x-ray of it." She did, and the object will not show up on x-ray, according to her.
Where would I find it on your website?
That's a good question. I don't go to my website all the time. I send things to my webmaster who's a PhD, and he takes care of it.
Okay. All right.
The point is that the object is, when we go back to Brazil, that will be one of the surgeries that we will do.
Okay.
They remove the object from her arm.
That's interesting. Now, this one says knee implants at the bottom.
This was one of the more interesting cases of. This was not my surgery. The story is quite remarkable. Two of these people were they camp. They're friends, and they camp in all kinds of places. Area 51 is one of them. Did these come from Area 51? I don't know that, but. The point is that the guy, he stays in the tent, and the girl, she stays in the tent. They're buddies, they hang out. And he gets up in the middle of the night. And she assumes, I think, that he's just going out to the bathroom. And he's gone for quite a while. He comes back limping. And she said, where have you been? He says, "I don't know." "Well, why are you limping?" "I don't know." "What's wrong?" "I don't know. My knee hurts." He goes to his doctor. His doctor x-rays it and finds 4 tic-tac size objects in the tendon of his knee and sends him to a specialist. The specialist does surgery on him, opens up his knee and says, "These are not calcifications. That little white stuff you see on the outside of the objects there, the implants, that is a calcification. That's calcification on the outside of the object. The objects appear to be a plastic type material, 4 of them lined up in a row in his tendon." The doctor, the specialist, said these are not naturally occurring, and even if they were, they would not be lined up in the knee in a tendon. He said that's impossible. He said, "I don't know what they are," and he did something most doctors never do. He didn't send it to a pathologist. He handed the objects to the guy in an enclosed container and said, "I don't want to see you again. I don't want you coming back here again. And I don't want to know anything about this. Goodbye." That was the end of that. So I have 3 of the 4 objects. The abductee kept one of them.
Interesting. All right. What's going on here?
That is the so-called skull that what's the term they use for it? The skull weighs ounces, basically. It's so lightweight, it's unbelievable. It's the so-called alien skull that Lloyd Pye was working on for many years, a friend of mine. that I forget what the name, what they call it, but it was the alien skull, so-called alien skull. It was later decided it was not alien, that it in fact was a deformed human skull of a child. And I met the people who had the skull and who own it in El Paso many years ago, and asked me if I would be interested in studying it. And I told them no, and I said I don't think I can do it justice. And number two, I don't think it's alien. And of course, naturally, people don't want to hear that about their evidence. I said, well, what do you mean? I said, look, when you've seen the alien and different types of aliens as I have for 13 years, up close and personal, even to the point of getting an implant, I think I can actually identify the skull features of an alien from a mile away. That's not alien.
I couldn't tell you the difference. I have no idea. But this, on the other hand, this looks not normal to me.
That's kind of not normal. It is.
It's a very large hand, and it has 6 fingers, right?
This is 6 finger. It's a polydactyl. This model was made in clay by a friend of mine in one of my abductees, actually, and he made this for me to the specifications of which we have seen on the body of the woman who was taken. She had it picked her up and left burns on her body on the front part and the back part with these images. And we, based on the best that we could find, my hands are quite large. I stand 6 foot tall, and my hands are pretty good size. As you can see, the hand weighed 23 pounds in clay, and based on our best information about it, it appears to be a polydactyl that picked her up and carried her off and left caustic burns on her body. Her doctor could not figure out where the burns came from. This case came from Brazil.
Interesting.
No, excuse me, a correction. Chile. This is out of Chile. This was not Brazil.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, that's all the ones that I pulled out there that I thought were interesting. So thank you so much for that and getting all that stuff right off the hop, right off the spot. We do have one more segment that we like to do for all our guests. It's going to kind of throw a wrench in the gears here. So we're gonna start that, and then we'll see where we go from there, and then we'll wrap things up. So this segment's called Sorry, Not Sorry. I'm just gonna play the little jingle here. Now, when we have this program, usually we kind of tether back and forth on subject matter that would be similar to this topic, but we didn't go anywhere near this, so this is going to be completely left field for you, and I apologize. But here are the rules. I'm going to ask you one question, and I'm going to just time how long it takes you to answer it. And the reason for that is it's just a social experiment, trying to figure out, how confident people are on something they should be sure about. Okay, do you accept the challenge?
Sure.
Okay, with all the knowledge and experience that you have, what shape is the Earth?
Well, it appears to be a sphere.
Appears to be, but what do you believe it to be?
I haven't been out in space very much, so it's hard for me to tell specifically. And using our telemetry and our equipment that is available to us, it appears to be a sphere.
What do you believe it to be?
My answer is that it appears to be a sphere.
Yeah.
And whenever I travel all over the world, I see a curvature on the Earth. Therefore, it seems to suggest to me as a sphere because of my own personal experiences.
There's no right or wrong answer. I ask everybody this question because we get a variance every time. Not too many people actually say what you say, despite that's what the science shows us. Again, it's just a whole, usually what we have is a variance of conversations and arguments back and forth about different beliefs and stuff, but we didn't go there tonight, which is kind of fell out of place, but I kind of figured you would end up that way as well.
Well, beliefs are like the length of your hair. You can dye it purple, green, or cut it all off or grow it longer. Those are beliefs, so not necessarily truth. And they say, well, that's not logic. Logic is not truth either. It's just a form of thinking. It's a good form of thinking, but it isn't the answer.
Mm-hmm. And I like what you said about space, and I always say that too. I'm not an astronaut, so I can't go out there and confirm and do all these other things too. And that's kind of more on the conspiratorial side of things. With NASA and the moon landing and all these other things, and CIA and cover-ups and blah blah blah. So, that's kind of where that went to. So
three of our abductees are NASA engineers.
Okay.
Right here in Houston.
Interesting. So you're in Texas then?
Houston, Texas.
Yeah, right on. A real cowboy.
God's country.
Yeah, awesome.
We only have 49 counties in Texas, in my opinion. New York, California, Los Angeles. These are just counties to us in Texas.
So what two don't you count? Or sorry, four. Is there how many have 52 states? So 3 you don't count?
Well, we just basically laugh at the other states and call them counties. Just counties in Texas.
I got you.
If you're not from Texas, you should be.
I got you. All right, so we got about 7 minutes left. Let's spend that time telling everybody how to find you, what you got next. You also mentioned, actually, you know what? No, hold on. Before we get to there, you mentioned that you just finished a shoot in Japan or Japanese crew.
The Japanese fielded a shoot from Japan here at my own home in my own office, and also in a laboratory where we looked at an object that a lady wondered if it, in fact, might be an alien implant. My assertion from the beginning at looking at it's not an alien implant. I said, I look at hundreds of x-rays every year. I know pretty much what I'm looking at. And the object found in her was anomalous, weird. It still is. After laboratory tests and everything else, we found it to be biological and very small. It looked like gold wires, what it looked like. Stuck in her shoulder that caused inflammation, and that all happened at a restaurant in front of witnesses. They have no idea how it got there or anything. They thought it might even be from the intelligence community. But whatever it is, it was biological, and we spent $2,000 to find that out.
Interesting.
It's not an alien implant.
And do you fund this yourself, or do you get funding?
No, they're paying for it. It's on their dime, and this is one of the times that I was well paid for my aspect of it too. They're very, very decent people, very good people.
Well, that's good. Goals. I have goals. One day I'd like to be paid for my services, but right now I'm just paying for it all, so it's all good. We'll get there. We'll get there. All right, great. So how can everybody find you? And anything you mentioned, you have books too, right? You are an author.
The basic way to find me is alienhunter.org. thealienhunter.com, and you can email me. You can click on Alien Hunter there; it'll automatically email me. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Even if they don't, quote unquote, don't agree with my viewpoint, I don't care. I listen to anybody and their opinions. I think it's going to take all of us to figure this stuff out. I don't think you can do it, quote unquote, by yourself. Nobody is going to have all the answers. They're just not. I don't care what kind of equipment you have, what kind of tech. There's a lot of things you're going to miss. It's just that big. So we do have 2 books. If you're interested, one of them is on how I found evidence, Alien Hunter, Evidence and Light. If you follow what the modality that I have there, you'll actually find evidence yourself if you're actually looking in the right spots. The second book I wrote was on alien implants, and again, they're not entertaining books. I didn't write them that way. They're simply books to show you how, and they're a little more than field notes, in my opinion. They're not designed to entertain you. If you're looking for that, you need to go to my on the far right side there. There's that one picture at the bottom, far right side. There's a video there. It's a wonderful video of all kinds of actual evidence, that some of which will surprise you. Some of it may alarm you. We've actually got a picture of an alien sitting in the back seat abducting someone in Los Angeles. And you say, well, you took that picture. No, actually, we didn't. The city of Los Angeles took the picture. It's a video cam, and I have the original. The alien in the back seat is actually real. They took the picture. I didn't.
Interesting. What's this little sample video here? Just a magnet test?
That's someone that came into Roswell. I've been speaking there 23 years in a row at Roswell, and there's an object in this person's hand. He claims that it, in fact, is an implant.
It's magnetic, okay?
Yes, it's ferrous. It's magnetic. The first implant we removed were ferrous. They were rare meteorites found from the Widmanstatten structure meteorite in a $22,000 study done by NIDS and the Bigelow Foundation. Their people paid for that study. 18 scientists were involved in that study. That I demonstrated in front of 18 of these scientists, and they accepted us as the only UFO project that year out of all the UFO people to study our implants and to find out what in the world these things were. And that, yes, it was, in fact, extraterrestrial in origin.
Interesting. Very interesting. All right. Well, Derrel, this has been great. Thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
One last thing, if I may. Yeah. Sometimes the alien only has 4 fingers, and if you flash a black light, you can actually see if you have a black light on in your room, the alien will light up like a Christmas tree like this. And I just wanted your people to know that, because 80% of the people taken in a so-called contact events, 80% of the people are not taken anywhere. They're actually confronted in their room or car or wherever, and they're not taken, quote unquote. They're uploaded or downloaded. Whatever is happening happens right there. 20% of these people are physically actually taken. And if that is true, you'll find evidence on, in, or around you. If that 20% of you has had these events, if you're careful and you know what to look for, that evidence is on, in, or around you.
Interesting. Thank you. Lisa Savoy says thank you. So we'll leave it at that. Everybody that is still in the chat, we are going to do an after chat. It'll be about 30 minutes. If anybody wants to join, and we will answer any questions that haven't been answered, and we'll talk to the guest there. Derrel, thank you so much for your time tonight, and thank you for
It's been a pleasure. You have a great audience. I love your directness of questions, and people, if you're terrified of those kind of questions, you need to review your event, because you ought to be as truthful as possible about this stuff.
Yeah, no, I felt good. I just felt real comfortable about that. And thank you for your dedication to the phenomenon. Thank you so much.
Quite all right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Everybody have a good night and heed the world.
Good night.
That's it, everybody. That is a wrap. That is the end of it all. Thank you for joining me tonight. I look forward to seeing you back next week, where we'll continue to have this conversation deep down into the rabbit hole in which we call the ultra spectrum. Thanks for joining us. I said that already. Oh well, fuck it. Heed the world.
Hello. You're muted. Hi.
Hi, hello.
Whoa, that was fucking great. That was
I
good. I enjoyed
know.
that. Well, I always like talking to another professional, like law enforcement officer, because like it could, like, you know, it felt good. It was a good conversation with me. I could tell, you know, it was good. He knows what he's been around. He knows what to say, and it felt good. I trusted it. You know, very honorable law enforcement officer. So that was pretty good.
I'm glad you liked it. I thought it was a great conversation too. It seemed like a lot of people enjoyed that.
Good job setting that up, and thank you. I think Alex passed this off, did he not?
Yes, exactly. Alex Mastretta helped us out with that
Yeah,
connection, and I'm really grateful.
Mr. Alex Mastretta, if you do watch this, or you just only watch the shows that with people you hate, you know, but thank you for this one. Yeah, you know, appreciate that. So let's say hello to everybody that's here. Quite a few comments. I'll just say hello to everyone, I guess, in sequence. I start a few. We need to get a system in on the star thing. But Tommy Hawksblood, hello. Good to see you. What did you say? I can only stay for a little while, but greetings everyone early. Yes, that's okay. Space Odyssey Oddities. Gary Voorhees Jr.
Okay,
right?
that's Gary's channel.
Yes. This is Gary. Yeah, there it is, right there. Good to see you, and thanks for that super chat. I appreciate that. We got to get you on as a professional partner. Like, I mean, there's things like you put enough gas in the tank here, sir. We should have set up a meeting if you're still listening to this. Maybe Cece, maybe reach out to Gary, see if we can get something going. Sharon Schimmel, hello everyone from
Chihuahua. I don't know.
Washington, USA. Hello, Sharon. Good to be here. My name is Ray. So this guy, if you're still here, Ray, say hello in the comments. This is a guy that I haven't seen in a long time. I used to work with him in maintenance and a cart boy in Zellers. Long time ago. And Max him and I used to play guitar and bands together. A long time no see, you guys. We used to hang out together and do a lot of stupid shit. So I hope you guys are well. If you're still here, say hello. Thanks for tuning in. Dank, hello. Thanks. Ozone layer is fixed. When did we get into that? That's earlier on. We didn't mention flat Earth till that's 7 minutes in. You were just getting started.
Just popped in, made a little comment.
Yeah.
Bye.
My name is okay. So Ray, you said aliens wouldn't contact us. We would just launch nukes. Person is smart. People are stupid. Oh, Ray, you haven't changed.
That was during the icebreaker.
Yeah, Ray, you have not changed. Tommy Hawksblog says they destroyed Atlantis. Interesting comment. They, like someone else, third party destroyed Atlantis, or the people of Atlantis who are the third party? You know, that's. You were still here. Clarify.
Or other aliens, I guess. Nefarious aliens.
Lisa. Hello, Lisa. Alien Girl, I saw you pop in there. Thank you so much for the like, subscribe, all the fancy emoticons there. Cheryl, share. That was pretty dope. And I heard that you were talking about the show this morning, and you are our guest next week, right?
Yeah. Yes, she is.
So that's exciting. Chantel has said many good things about you, and she's a fan of your channel. So I'm looking forward to merging the families next week. This will be fun. Very fun. Find out what she's listening to every morning while she's working.
Yeah. It's before my work. It is.
Multitasking. Remember, I got to learn about multitasking, right? It's just paid work versus free work, because I'm a little less stressed when it's
7 a.m. to 8 a.m. usually is the show.
If I'm ever abducted, so Gary Voorhees says, if I'm ever abducted, it will be against my will. Just saying. Yeah, well, you're an Army vet and you're a stocky guy. I think you could probably take on the 4-foot Grays. Probably knee them in the face, something like that. I, on the other hand, I don't know. I might have a problem with the 5-foot ones. I'm a little short, but yeah. Okay, but they don't have packages, so I can't like kick them. But we'll figure it out. But I would
Oh,
also
Tommy
too.
Hawksblood responded.
Oh, did he?
I think
Can
about
you
the
read it so I don't?
Atlantis.
So
Oh,
two
sorry.
alien
Yeah, the
races. Yeah,
Atlantis.
no,
Yeah.
I'm in the starred one. So if you can comment,
Oh,
show the
okay.
live ones. That's great.
Awesome.
Two alien races. Yeah. Okay. So like, have you heard of the Mew and maybe the Mew against the Atlanteans? Perhaps look that shit up. They know Jim. Hello, Jim. Good to see you, and thank you for being a member. Alien Girl says, great resource. Thank you, Tessa. You are welcome. Thank you. This is an interesting comment I saw Ray put into. Can a 6-year-old even draw a compound bow? That was a thought in my head. And then I was thinking, like that is a dangerous weapon for a young child. I didn't want to judge, but then they're also American, so
I
maybe.
think they make them
So
for children. I don't
yeah,
know. Like
I
little
mean, I'm not
compound.
calling bullshit on. I believe the event happened, but I was a little concerned about like a child having access to those weapons. But then again, this is America, not Canada, so sorry, not sorry. And Brandy Phillips, thank you for the channel. You also said, asked the question: wait, a 6-year-old set up a weapon? Yeah. So we all heard that. You had said definition of entity ? So what is your definition of an entity?
Well, my definition of an entity would, like, we could even be considered an entity as a human being. I'm an entity. Like, it's pretty broad terms. So I was just kind of thinking, like, the comment that aliens versus entities. In my view, alien is an entity.
Well, by definition, an entity, I'm reading this here, it says, is something that exists as itself, as a subject, or as an object, actually or potentially, concretely or abstractly, physical or not. If not,
There you
it
go.
need not be of material existence. In particular, abstractions and legal fictions are usually regulated as entities.
Thank you for doing that, because I didn't have the bandwidth to support looking that up. But yeah.
That's okay.
So
I had to say
technically.
something. It was too long for me to say that it came from my brain. Well, that's why I say beings observed. That's why I choose the word beings instead of entity. What is beings? I looked that up then. So the beings definition is, the nature or essence of existence. That's pretty vague.
They all are. They're umbrella terms, right? And
Mm-hmm.
Tommy Hawksblood, who's the commenter originally, I dealt with both aliens are solid and eat food. Entities are not solid. So that's
Interesting.
his essentially definition as an entity is an ethereal.
Okay. Cool. Thanks for keeping. Yeah, that's the problem we had in the past is the live chat happens and get to the end. So thanks for paying attention to that. Yeah, even Ray looks. Even Ray. My name is Ray. Ray, you said even Ryan looks skeptical, and I saw that too live too. I was just thinking, not skeptical, but I was just, I was like,
You're feeling that,
Leanne and Corey, if you're still here, hello. Happy birthday, Corey, if you're watching. I know you both aren't working, so I hope you guys are enjoying the night off and getting ready for the weekend. One last easy weekend before another heavy festival. Karen Holton, hello. Hi. What else did you say here? Yeah, and Ray brought this up too. Said they're covering it up as good as they are covering up the flat Earth. Oh, but we got to get a flat earther on here. We need to have like a good conversation.
I've been looking for one, so.
And if you're still here, welcome to the channel. Hi.
Hello.
Ray says, is Blacklight hiring? Yes, we are. We have a festival in 2 weeks that we need extra people for. We're short, so we could use you and Max for the day. Reach out to the website, which I saw you put out there, right? And we are looking for some crew. And then we can hang out afterwards. Who knows? Jeff Garvey, hello. Good to see you. Welp from AF. I haven't seen you, Afe, maybe in a while, but you're still a member. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
married to a cop. So that's a little bit of judgment on the abusive marks that were present on the testimony of that female. Still circumstantial, not enough evidence to conclude, but that's a bit of a stereotypical judgment. But it is. That's why I was kind of bringing up the whole fluorescent part, because it's bruises do show under fluorescent light from general normal nicks and bruises. So to
Yeah, but
determine,
it's not got like that glowy thing he's referring to. Like I don't know, if you watch some of his movies probably that you can buy on his website, because I've seen a lot of his work. That's how I knew about him.
we will have to do a control sample.
Yeah, like I have a black light now that I use, and I have bruises all the time. All the time. And and they don't show fluorescent or like what he describes, so I don't know about
Okay.
that.
Well, I don't know. Win Nice says, interesting show. I had an experience in 2013. I don't believe all the stories, but I do believe some. My experience was not evil. I thought the tall, whitish, bug-eyed aliens were angels watching over me. So they could be angels. We don't know. I would encourage you to make a report. Experienceyoursupport.org, please.
Mm-hmm.
You continue to say, okay, I'm looking at the website now. Perfect. I have nothing of evidence. I wasn't abducted and didn't see a UFO, just 4 tall beings in my room. So that is still evidence of something. I will work with you to get evidence of whatever it is that you've reported. You can, I think you mentioned in the comments too about drawings, right? Drawings are still evidence.
Yes, drawings still evidence.
Angela, have not seen you in a while. Glad you're alive and well. An avid reporter as well. So you said you have photos exactly like that of my daughter. It was very disturbing until we figured out it was from a game at school, popping water balloons and frisbee by sitting on it. So you're referring to the legs there with the little leash marks, maybe, perhaps? Yeah.
I believe that's when she made that comment, yeah.
Yeah. See, I was again, not having all the evidence or the information in front of me. He mentioned something about her taking care of animals, and I just thought maybe the leash got behind and,
I thought the same thing. It occurred to me. But...
strap marks or something. Yeah, I think you said that too, strap marks. MI Extra. If aliens can immobilize people and float them out of their homes and into spaceships, why do they need to strap them down for experiments? Touche.
Yeah, I know. How do you even respond to that? I'm not sure.
Well, and we have to look at it case by case.
It's maybe a precaution. I'm not sure, because I'm pretty sure I've been strapped down before too. And I have insane reflexes though, and I have a high tolerance to anesthetics.
Yeah. So depending on what methods they're using, maybe, there's a tolerance there and they have no choice but to resort to those methods. Or perhaps there's a human element where it's humans doing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not alien, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's it. Anything else? Anyone else in the chat? We got 13 people. Say hello. We're going to talk about what's new with Tessa, but if you got questions, speak now. Or forever hold your peace until next Thursday or Monday.
Yeah, maybe go through the website, show new events that are coming up and what's going on.
Yeah, so CC kicked some ass today on the website. Actually, before we get down to that, no, it's down here too.
Mm-hmm.
Our events are now showing here on our bottom on our homepage. So Uncharted Case Files. So my next episode is this Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. I will be going through the reporting system, how to use it, and explanation as to why I'm asking these questions. So tune in Monday at 3 p.m. and we'll go through that. And also, CC would like to bring back Experiencers Anonymous. And you were tagging that quite a lot in the show tonight, which was good. And so that's going to be July 30th. So for those of you who want to attend that, you don't need to sign up and get the link anymore. It's just here. It'll be here on the day of. You can click this and go right to it, right to the event. And from there, you hit more and there's your Zoom meeting link on the day. A lot nicer presentation too, eh?
Yeah, it looks good. Not sure
And
what
then if you click join the event now, that'll bring you right to Zoom.
that.
If you
Okay.
do that right on the day. So for those of you, so what is EA? For those who don't know what EA is.
It's Experiencers Anonymous. It's a group of people getting together to have a candid discussion about what's going on, how they feel about it, and just in a space that's free of judgment and open to all types of experiences, not just UFO phenomena.
So we also have a calendar now too. So as we do events, you have all three there, but you click on the day. It's going to show you what's going on. So that's another cool little feature on our event page there. So we set that up today. Good job. Good job, team.
That'll keep being updated, folks. So go to the website for the most up-to-date items.
Yeah, and we can also rent that space too to refer some of our partners to their shows and stuff. If anybody wants to participate in that, if you guys want to represent Tessa too, and share the love. There's things like that too. What else we got working on the Ultra Spectrum Library? We got a couple book reviews in the works.
Yes, those are several now. I got like months of work.
Interconnected. So the retreat, we're still working on that. I'm working on the store next week. I got a couple items. So the store is available if you guys want to go to it. But right now it's just my book. So if you guys haven't purchased my book yet, you can get that one. That's right there. So just by going to the shop, but we will be adding more there. And I do have to write 2 more books for 2021 and probably 2022. So I might just do a group one and call it the COVID edition. I don't know. Because we're still playing catch up on everything too. And then the other thing I got to work on is our private discussion group.
Yes, we're trying to figure out the nuances of this right now.
But this will be a nice little private chat for some members and things like that. So those are kind of what's up. So for those of you, we also added affiliates to the menu today. So Alliance for Extraterrestrial Diplomatic Contact, Blacklight Investigative Surveillance Services, Ghost Stop, Goddess Provisions, and UFO Stop. So these are services that we use, and that's there. So you click on their link, and there's my company there. Obviously, you need to update this website because it looks like shit comparison to the experiencers support one. But I mean, it's all good. Priorities, right? Take what business is more important to me? No. Actually, that's not true. I got an award yesterday for outstanding. Look, it's right here. 2022
nice.
Outstanding Small Business. Yep, Blacklight Investigative Services. I know a thing or two about business, and so shout out to the team and everyone over the last 7 years who helped me, help us get this. So yeah, cheers. Right on. Yay. I got a certificate too. Right here. Look at this.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I'll go. Yep. Right now. So might know a thing or two about investigations and security. So just saying. Sorry, not sorry. All right, Lisa, would you say when aliens float me out of the room, they step out of the way? Well, that's nice of them. Congratulations. Thank you, Lisa. All right. Anything new on your side?
No, that's pretty much covered it. Like you said, Alien Girl will be on the next week's episode of Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. Alien Girl 111 on Twitter. So I'm really looking forward to that one. Maybe I can even join in on the discussion.
Yeah, if you want, I don't care.
Maybe. All right.
You can pop in anytime. You have control. You have access. You can do that on any show at any time, really.
Yeah. No, it's better this way. I'm still too shy, folks. Too shy.
Okay.
But I'm working on that.
It's all good. This is your screen time. That's why we do this. This is your practice for screen time. If we take all these
Yeah,
after
there you go.
chat and put them together, you'll have your own podcast and call it the after chat. Yeah.
The after chat, or like I said, CCTV.
Yeah. See, with security though, that fucks with me. Like, because that's closed circuit television. Those are the cameras we watch, the surveillance and things like that. So that totally fucks with me. I'm not working right now. Yeah.
All right.
All right. That is clever. All right, well that's it, kids. So see you guys Monday. So I'll share my screen one more time. This will be live stream on my personal Facebook page, YouTube, and Rockfin Now.
Yes.
Um,
Yes, people can find us on Rockfin Now if you're part of that.
yeah, if you want to do that instead of this. And we're just trying to expand our reach. Also working on uploading the audio versions for the podcast too, for the podcast only. That's coming.
Yeah, for this season of the podcast.
Mm-hmm. So join the event now. Does this work? Oh yeah, it brings you right there. Look at that.
Yay.
Oh no, let's bring it on live. CC, did you put the wrong link there?
Maybe. I'll check it out.
You might want to fix that. Shit. Yeah, that brought me right to that one.
All right, I'll fix it right now.
Yeah, you're gonna have to fix that. But anyways, this is the right one right here. Click on that one. It'll be live in 3 days. We're gonna talk about the report submission. So I will go. Fuck, this website is so nice. Nice in colors. Submit a report. So I will go through the submit a report process, and I'll explain every question and every possible scenario and why I'm asking these questions, and hopefully teach you guys, encourage you guys to make reports. And then from there, I'm out of ideas, so we're gonna have to. I'm gonna have to upload some declassified documents. So, oops, gonna have to do that soon.
We've out of ideas. I don't know if that's ever true because they're constantly coming up with ideas. All right.
Yeah.
Just like the next idea is right around the corner.
ADD for the win. So yeah, well, eventually, once I got that all covered, once the report's done, I think what we'll do is we'll talk about cases. I'll find some declassified cases. Well, that's not one. People are probably looking at that and be like, "What is that?" So yeah, I'm getting really good at figuring out where places are on the map without actually knowing where they are. Right? So it's like this is Ontario, and that was Ottawa, because here is and I've already done a video on this one. But yeah, declassified documents. So I got more coming. I'm going to get into the basic stuff that's already been released on the Canadian government website, just so that's all there. All the stuff that everybody knows about. It's not many files. And then I'm going to start digging into probably the Stanton Freeman files, because Grant Cameron has requested me to go through that. And for those of you who watched the last week's or the week's episode, was it last week's episode, Grant Cameron?
Yes.
Yeah. His hearing meeting went well.
Okay.
We're currently looking he is currently looking for politicians and witnesses to come forward for that. He's given me a criteria. I'm not going to tell you the criteria because I don't want anybody to make reports and be all fandom just so they can be a part of this hearing. But we're going to be looking at our database to see if we have anybody that fits that criteria, and asking Grant Cameron to connect with you. So, yeah, make a report. Cool beans. Okay, that's it.
Okay, I just fixed the link, okay?
Did you? Let me check. Fact check. Hey.
It's still updating. Give it a second. There we go.
Oh, see? If I didn't do that, you might. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
No.
What are you talking about? I
Look.
just clicked.
No, look. Inception.
I don't know. I'll have to take a look at it then, because maybe the link's in a different spot. I was learning, but that one I thought I had down pat.
Nope.
I literally just picked the right from our YouTube, the link, and put it in.
So it might be a different spot. I don't know.
Okay, I'll look at it. Sorry,
But
folks.
that's okay. So an alternative way for you guys to find the episode is if you just click it here. It's right there.
Click on that. Yeah,
Right,
click on
ready
that.
for you. Visit our YouTube channel. You can click join and become a member, and you notice that members had their questions on the screen, and we talked to them. So that's one of the perks of being a member. Unclassified tier, you get to watch a video where I almost got arrested by military police, and amongst a few others. But there it is, right there. So just subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't done so, or on Rockfin. And if you're on my Facebook page, you will see that one. Let's go to Facebook.
Yes. Yeah, so you can follow Ryan Stacey on Facebook and Twitter.
If you want. You don't have to.
If you want, yeah. Ryan Stacey, private UFO and paranormal investigator. That's how you can find him on Facebook.
Now look at this weird ass photo. I was laughing at this. Like, this is a good photo when I got this award. This is everybody that got the award, by the way.
Yeah.
But like, I look like someone who just works there, who's just standing there and photobomb the photo.
Yeah.
I do not belong there. I do not belong there. What else did I post on my page? Posted some. Oh yeah, I did a freedom of information request on this event here, communication. So they're just basically, it's categorized as a service in UFO, but it says a communication instructions for reporting vital intelligence sightings. Report was sent to the Flight Information Center. So I want to know what that was about, because he still doesn't really say if it's a UFO or not, but it was strange. And I saw this. Did you see this?
Yeah, I love that show. That's why I commented with another meme from that show.
No, I saw that. Where is it? Right here. There you go.
I love that episode.
Yeah. So that's me. That's me in a nutshell. And then Grant Cameron, and that's it. I think we're up to speed. And yeah, time for bed. Time for bed.
Time for bed. All right. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Have a good night. We'll see you. We'll see you on Monday. We need an exit for after chat.
We do. Maybe not a really long one. Just a bye-bye.
Yeah. Well, how about, because I don't have one, we'll just do sorry, not sorry.
Okay. Bye.